Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Wilkinson, present. Councilmember Cooper. Here. Mayor Mark.
Here.
Councilmember Chemnitzer. Here. Councilmember Lynch.
Here. Thank you very much. I'll now move to City Council reports. Do any City Council members have any reports this evening? Start on the left with Councilmember Lynch. No. Councilmember Chemnitzer. No.
I do.
Sally.
Go ahead.
I have a very brief one, which is just to advertise the fact that the next stage of the Tiburon traffic study is a public workshop, which is being held on Tuesday, December the 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at their town hall. The traffic consultants so far have just done the assessment of existing conditions. And so now they're looking for input from the community in terms of ideas and to learn more about where they stand. Long-term or solutions being a combination of demand management, traffic operations, including signal timing and capacity enhancement. So they're the three buckets that they're looking at. So we definitely would encourage Belvedere residents to attend that workshop. And that will also be coupled with an online survey, which will be coming out towards the end of November, and we will circulate that as well.
Things around here are kind of busy. We had a Get Ready 9 for 920 event over in Tiburon that I attended. And next time, instead of advertising popcorn or whatever, we're going to advertise swag, because I got to bring home all kinds of great things back from our police department, Tiburon's police department, all kinds of wonderful gadgets and things to use. So I recommend going next time. I also attended the Diwali celebration that we're supporting, and that was very well attended and was fascinating and colorful. I wanted to let everyone know that Adam Brolin, who's a member of the Belvedere Tiburon Joint Disaster Agency, will be leading a Get Ready workshop, emergency workshop downstairs in the Founders Room on November 20th from 5:30 to 7:30, and everyone is welcome to attend. I also wanted to let people know that in my role as Coyote liaison, we did have had a mated pair in Belvedere for the last close to 2 years, I'd say. And 2 weeks ago, the male of the mated pair was found dead. We think, we don't know how it was killed. It was not anything visible. So a Belvedere Avenue resident contacted me and our wildlife consultant, Rebecca Dimitrick, and she came and retrieved it and sent the corpse down to the state lab to determine the cause of death. I was hoping I'd know the results by now, but unfortunately the lab has said it'll be a couple more weeks before we know what the determination is of that coyote's death. So we don't really know what this means. Will the female leave to find another mate? Will other coyotes arrive and make Belvedere their territory? We're still receiving reports of sightings and howlings, and so we know that we still have coyotes here in residence. And I just want to remind everyone not to let their guard down if you're a pet owner, and to remain vigilant and follow all the careful recommendations found on our website. But as soon as I know what the cause of death is, if it's something interesting, we'll share that also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one quick report on behalf of the block captains group and our chief of police. I'd just like to announce that there's a life-saving skills and emergency preparedness workshop, and I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, Robert, in your presentation, on Wednesday, November 20th and Thursday, November 21st, and information is online. No medical skills are necessary, but it's a good refresher and a good thing to learn. So I'll take public comments on our city council reports. I don't see any. Anyone online?
Mayor Mark, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask our city manager to present his report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mark. I do have a few news items this evening. I'll start by taking a moment to highlight two upcoming dates. First is the annual town meeting. This has been scheduled for the evening of January 30th. That's a Thursday. During this meeting, we'll talk about the state of the city and then transition to celebrating the Citizen of the Year, which also is a reminder that the Citizen of the Year nomination period is now open, so please don't be shy about nominating someone that you feel has contributed to our community. Digital forms are available on the website. It's very easy. Simply fill out the form details and click submit. The second date I'll announce is the annual retreat. This is the City Council's strategic planning session where they set goals for the upcoming year. It will be held on Thursday, February 13th. So stay tuned for more details about location and the time for that meeting. Moving on, it's now November, and it's safe to say that winter is upon us. The National Weather Service hosted a winter briefing for city officials today, and they outlined the season forecast. While they're not expecting an El Nino or a La Nina level storms, there is still the possibility of slightly above typical rainfall for the Bay Area. Residents are encouraged to spend time now cleaning out their gutters, drain pipes, and downspouts. Drainage maintenance is always important, whether you live in the flat area or on the hillside, to prevent property damage and landslides. DPW, of course, is doing their annual work as well, cleaning out Belvedere storm drain systems. They're also stockpiling sandbags and performing extra street sweeping in advance of storms. It does take an effort to accomplish all this work, so I want to thank everyone for doing their part. Earlier this year, you may recall, we discussed an update to the city's APM, Administrative Policy Manual, regarding a formally adopted orange tag policy for construction vehicle parking. A sort of progressive three-stage enforcement policy was proposed, and council asked that we beef up that policy by adding an administrative citation to the second illegal parking offense. We have thoroughly researched this and found some complications with the administrative citation process that may make it not the best fit for this category of enforcement. We're working with the fee study consultant, and we're working to determine if there's a better mechanism to accomplish City Council's goals. So this is an update to let you know we're still working on it, and we do intend to bring that item for your with a recommendation in January or February of next year. And moving on, with the election now over, the timing is right to schedule onboarding training for new council members. This training will be held in the next 2 weeks in advance of their first meeting in December. We plan to extend the onboarding training to continuing council members as well. As a reminder, in December, we'll also be honoring our outgoing city council members for their many years of hard work and service to the community. So please put in your calendar to attend the December 9th city council meeting and thank them for their dedication. And then finally, last but not least, Mallard Point. There's no new updates as of my last briefing in October. As of today, the city has not received any new submittals. The developer is still expecting to drop off demolition and infrastructure applications any day now. We will, of course, update the website as soon as we have anything. But again, regarding Mallard Point, no new news. That's all I have. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our city manager?
Robert, just a quick one for me. Is there a fixed date already for the onboarding of council members?
No, we're working on setting those. But again, it's going to be before the December 9th city council meeting,
Okay, I would like to participate, so.
of course.
Thank you. See no more questions. Open the meeting up for public comment on our city manager's report. Not seeing anyone in the room.
There are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar will be addressed as a whole unless a city council member or a member of the public wishes to pull an item. Do we have any questions or comments to pull an item from the city council? Vice Mayor?
I'm not sure I have to,
You don't
but
need,
I know there's always that difference. So I have a question, and that perhaps is a minor correction, and I do have a minor correction for the 4H, which is the Parks, Open Space and Lanes Committee amendments to the Administrative Policy Manual. So would you like me just to ask the questions? Okay. So Robert, there's a sentence at the beginning of 611.1, I think it is, 6.1.1, on page 2 of what was given to us. And it says, this committee is comprised of residents who have an interest in landscaping. And I was just curious if we feel that that's still applicable, considering that at this point, I'm not sure we have any members that are particularly interested in landscaping. And I didn't know if there was a reason why that needed to be there, or if it was just a holdover and maybe.
Yeah, I think in large part it was probably a holdover from the previous charter, quote unquote. Yeah, obviously landscaping is a very narrow part of what the committee's overall
Right.
purview is. So either we expand that sentence or we just strike it
Or
altogether.
delete it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would hope that you can make that decision either way.
Okay.
Thanks. And then also on page 2, 6.2.5, in the second sentence, it says a special meeting may be called by the chair of the committee upon receipt of notice that an entitlement has been requested relating that has significant impact. I think relating just needs to be omitted, and then it makes sense.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That was all.
Council, is it appropriate to make those amendments without pulling this item, or should we need to pull it to make those amendments?
I think we should pull it since we are making
Okay,
amendments.
so why don't we pull it so we
Thank you,
can make
Mayor.
those quick amendments? And you said you had a question for another item or no?
No, that was
Okay,
it.
let's do. Any further comments about the consent calendar? Would anybody in the public like to comment or ask questions about items on the consent calendar? Seeing no one here, Madam Clerk, anyone online?
Mayor Mark, there are no hands raised.
Thank you. So if I could entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar less item 4H, which we'll address afterwards.
I so move.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so item 4H, if the council is in agreement, we could strike that first sentence from 6.1.1. I think it would still read fine. And correct the comments, the related word in 6.2.5.
Can I add just
Sure.
a little history? My understanding was that that landscaping thing historically was about master gardeners, to give them, if there happens to be someone with that background, that they might add some skills, but just context.
It does say interest in landscaping. That doesn't mean, it's not a very high bar.
No, it's not.
It just said it was comprised of residents who have an interest in landscaping. And like Robert said, they're also interested in many other parts of the lanes, the parks,
What
and
if-
and the landscape.
There is a reference to master gardener further
Yeah.
down in the ordinance.
What if we were just to
Yeah.
replace have with may?
Or we could put reference to master gardeners at the end of the paragraph. So you strike the first sentence and just say, in addition to all of these skills, above relating to the various projects the committee takes on, we invite, people with an acute interest in landscaping, including master gardeners, or something like that, just to pay homage to the point that Councilmember Wilkinson makes.
Robert, you said it's referenced elsewhere in the APM.
So further down on page 17, that would be 6.2.6. There's a reference in that one of the last paragraphs there. It says preference for appointments shall generally be given to master gardeners, parents with young children, and volunteers from community environmental organizations such as Broom Busters and the RBRA, or excuse me, Richardson Bay Audubon Society.
So it seemed to me that the landscaping piece of it sort of was already included in later on
Mhm.
when they were mentioned, And I don't know if it needs, if we need to keep this sentence just to reference what's already there later on.
So the part of the sentence I think is worth keeping is that it's comprised of residents. And I don't see that elsewhere. What would you think of just replacing the word landscaping with
Parks and open spaces.
with parks and open spaces? Yes, exactly. I was thinking open spaces. Parks are open spaces, but why don't we replace it with public open spaces? But I do think they should be residents. There are a lot of people outside of Belvedere who could have an interest in Belvedere's open spaces. So I like the idea that they would be
I do too.
residents.
I think that's a great compromise.
So do you have notes on that to take a motion with the those two items discussed?
Yes. I've got
Okay,
that.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jane, do you want to make that motion?
Sure. I make the motion that we approve 4H as amended.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You know, I didn't take public comment on that. Let me ask if there's any public comment on the consent calendar or item 4H in particular. Seeing none,
I see none.
thank you. Sorry about that. Moving on to our public hearing, we'd like to move to item 5A, which is a public hearing to consider the revised draft six-cycle housing element update. And we are being asked to approve its submission to HCD for the second revision.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Mark and council members. As Mayor Mark mentioned, the item for you tonight includes the City of Belvedere's six-cycle housing element. Belvedere's 2023-31 housing element was adopted by the City Council on January 24th, 2023, and submitted to HCD for a 90-day review period. Subsequently, on May 1st, 2023, HCD sent a letter requesting modifications for compliance with state law. The element was revised and resubmitted on January 30th, 2024. After 60-day review, HCD sent another letter to the city on March 29th, 2024, indicating that while the revised draft addressed many requirements, additional changes would still be needed. Since receiving the latest feedback from HCD, city staff, consultants, and officials have been meeting, researching, discussing, revising, and rewriting the housing element. On October 15th, 2024, the Planning Commission reviews the second revised housing element update. The Planning Commission provided comments on the revised document, and they have been incorporated into the version that you are reviewing tonight. The Planning Commission agreed that as amended, it could recommend that the City Council approve the second revised housing element for submission to HCD. A thorough description of the city's process, second revised housing element, sites inventory, and housing programs will be presented tonight by Allison Moore of Diet and Batia.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. So tonight I'll share the presentation we gave to the Planning Commission on the 30th describing Belvedere's housing element resubmittal process. Next slide. And as Rebecca mentioned and gave an overview of the process so far, we did meet with HCD in October, and they did say that revisions were on the right track and encouraged resubmittal of the full element, which we can do in short order after your approval to forward the element to them after this evening. So tonight I will provide an overview of the major changes since you last saw the document in January and seek approval to resubmit to HCD. Formal adoption will happen in the new year after state review and after they give indication that they are willing to certify. So I'll first start by giving a recap of the requirements for the housing element and then move into the revisions that have been made. So just a quick overview of housing element requirements. There are three main components. So first is the site's inventory, and that includes a map and a table of sites that Belvedere will make available for housing with site-by-site projections for realistic capacity of those sites. Second, a background analysis and review of Belvedere's housing needs based on census data, as well as any constraints for housing construction, and that includes regulatory process, market-related or environmental constraints. And this also includes an analysis of fair housing conditions, meaning fair access to housing opportunity for all special groups, including older adults, people with disabilities, extremely low-income individuals, and large families and others. And then third, based on that analysis is the action plan that seeks to facilitate production of housing and address any identified needs, constraints, or issues on the other components. For the current housing period, which goes from 2023 to 2031, Belvedere's assessed share of regional housing need is 160 units, which is broken down into various income categories. And then this next portion will outline the major changes that address HCD's comments and requests made in their March letter. So while some of the requests were more straightforward, so that includes more background data on special needs groups, more information on how Belvedere implemented its fifth housing cycle element, more analysis around constraints related to permit processing times, emergency shelters, et cetera. The biggest lift from their letter included revisions to the site's inventory contained in Appendix A, including clarification of ADU, accessory dwelling unit projection methodology, more evidence on the viability of non-vacant sites for redevelopment, substantiation of realistic capacity projections, and a more detailed analysis of fair housing patterns for the sites. Next slide. So in particular, HCD asked for more clarity on what is possible under Belvedere's current zoning and which sites are being used or rezoned to accommodate a shortfall of lower income RHNA, because there are specific requirements under state law that apply to sites used to accommodate that lower income shortfall. So as shown in the bullets here, they must permit multifamily development by right, subject to objective standards. There are size requirements, so each site must allow 16 units per site at a density of 20 dwelling units per acre. Zoning must permit 100% residential projects and 4 mixed-use zones that the zoning must require that 50% of the floor area be required for residential uses. So the sites inventory and finding sites that meet these requirements in Belvedere is challenging, especially finding sites that are located in areas that are appropriate for lower income housing, which HCD specifies should be in areas close to amenities, services, transportation, et cetera. So we only have a limited universe of sites in Belvedere based on those facts. And the changes to the inventory clarify which sites meet the legal requirements for those that are used to accommodate a lower income shortfall. And then additionally, other changes in the inventory include replacement of the SB 10 strategy with SB 9 incentives that I'll talk more about later. In conversation with HCD, they also came to the agreement after some discussion that a projection of up to 4 accessory dwelling units per year for a total of 32 units over the planning period was appropriate. And this was a lower number than we had originally projected in the prior element. So starting with the sites that can be accommodated with current zoning, this includes our pipeline projects with building permits and planning approval, vacant sites with residential zoning assumed to accommodate 1 above moderate income housing unit per site, and then our ADU projections that I mentioned. Any sites that did not meet size requirements for lower income RHNA, such as those that were originally in the R2, were removed. And then so when we sum up all of the sites that have units projected under current zoning, this is about 65 units total. But however, the RENA number is 160, so that's 95 units short of the overall RENA allocation, and then a deficit across all RENA categories. Particularly important to note is that this is a deficit of 54 units on sites that need to allow for higher density and meet those state requirements. So now moving into our sites that we are using to accommodate lower income RENA. Sites must be rezoned to meet requirements under state law. There are 2 sites at the boardwalk that when combined, their acreage meets the site size requirement standards. And then in January of 2024, Belvedere did rezone this area to create a mixed-use district with sufficient density range, 30 to 35 dwelling units per acre to meet that standard. We are projecting 61 units on 2 of those sites in the red there, which are counted towards low and very low income RENA and 4 towards moderate income RENA. This time around, there are small amendments needed to comply with all of the requirements of state law that just will be text amendments to allow that 100% residential and 50% of the floor area for residential in the mixed use zone. 3 other sites in the mixed use district are too small to be counted towards low and very low income RENA, though there is some potential for housing there. And that is counted towards the above moderate income allocation. And the number and percentage of lower income units counted at the boardwalk site is higher for 2 principal reasons. The boardwalk is one of only a few sites in Belvedere that meet those requirements for lower income RENA. And also it now matches the affordability assumptions for the boardwalk site that Tiburon has in their certified housing element. So the next area for rezoning is the R3 incentive program. So in one of our R3 clusters, there are 3 adjacent parcels under common ownership that are of sufficient size when combined to meet the requirements. The current adopted element includes incentives to encourage redevelopment of these sites, including 2 feet of bonus height for those sites fronting Beach Road and open space relaxation, which are made available if the property owner commits to some affordability at these sites. So with incentives, the R3 program and those sites there can accommodate 14 new units. And here again, zoning amendments are needed to comply with the lower income requirements, including establishment of a minimum density of 20 dwelling units per acre per state law. And when we did some testing to get the number of units that the Belvedere Land Company had wanted, we estimated that they would need 26.5 dwelling units per acre to get what they wanted. So we then established a ceiling of 28 dwelling units per acre because HCD will want to see some buffer there. So with these zoning amendments, there's now a capacity for 152 units, and we can meet our lower income RENA and the sites that we have included in there meet the requirements. But even after these amendments, there is still a deficit of moderate and above moderate income units. The housing element also needs to include a buffer of sites at all income levels to make sure that the city can navigate no net loss provisions of state law if the sites don't develop as envisioned. So to bridge the gap and provide that buffer, we have a new program in here that provides SB 9 incentives. SB 9 is a new state law that allows qualifying property owners to split their single family lot and build up to 4 new homes on what was previously the single family lot. And the SB 9 law does require ministerial approval of such developments. The graphic on this slide here shows some possibilities for what the 4 units on the lot might look like. So it's possible for the property owner to split the lot and add 2 new single-family homes to the new lot, or add 1 to the lot with an existing unit for a total of 4 overall. It's not a requirement that they develop all 4 or that they split and build 1 new home. But the important point is that SB 9, as enacted by the state, you can't have more than 4 units on what was previously a a single-family lot. Belvedere currently has a SB 9 ordinance on the books that clearly states that you can't build an ADU on the new lot if you've already built 2 units on a newly created lot. Next slide. And so there has been interest from property owners in Belvedere in SB 9 development. There have been 2 SB 9 lot splits approved to date, and 1 is pending. There has also been SB 9 activity in various other Marin County jurisdictions. And as such, SB 9 is a viable strategy and potential to bridge that RHNA gap and provide a buffer. And so the idea is that Belvedere would amend the ordinance to go beyond the requirements of state law and provide bonus units in exchange for a commitment to affordability from the owner. And that means that if the owner commits to deed restricting 1 unit for moderate income, they would get 1 bonus unit, so a total of 5 units on a single family lot. And then separately, if the property owner deed restricts for a lower income unit, they get 2 bonus units for a total of 6. But in no case would the homeowner have the right to develop more than 3 units per new lot. So in Belvedere, there are hundreds of lots, over 300 that qualify for SB 9 generally, and another 380 if projects meet requirements of areas in floodplains or liquefaction hazards. HCD did request some analysis of the viability to support any projections made for SB 9. And as such, we conducted analysis to identify the most likely candidates of all of those eligible sites. And we did identify 32 sites per that analysis. But this does not mean that housing is projected on the specific sites. It's merely that there are viable sites in Belvedere and that there are many others in the overall universe of eligible sites where the potential exists. So 32 units is just about 10% of sites that meet general state requirements. And then just one more point about the analysis. We looked at characteristics of other sites in Marin County that have seen lot splits to show that characteristics of these candidate sites in Belvedere are similar. So with that, we have projected 36 units over the 8-year period resulting from SB 9 incentive implementation, 3 of which would be low or very low income, 6 for moderate income, and the remainder for above moderate. This program also helps to meet requirements for housing mobility and affirmatively furthering fair housing, or the idea that the city needs to promote a variety of housing types in predominantly single-family neighborhoods. So in summary, SB 9 incentives in single-family zones really help to bridge our RHNA gap for moderate and above moderate and satisfy requirements that HCD will want to see for housing mobility. There are also a few changes to key programs in the action plan that I'll walk you through. So program 1A is the inclusionary requirement. Back in January, this was initially a citywide inclusionary requirement, but that was not adopted because there was discussion among property owners about how that citywide inclusionary requirement might be a constraint. However, Tiburon does have an inclusionary ordinance that then also applies to the boardwalk. And so our strategy now with this program 1A is to change the focus of the inclusionary program so that it only applies to the mixed use district and matches what Tiburon currently has. The city would then could consider feasibility of adopting an in lieu fee at a later date, likely at the end of 2026. Program 2A relates to the application of objective design standards in the design review process. HCD requested clarification on when Title 22 or the objective design standards apply, and they want to ensure that there was a non-discretionary procedure for multifamily housing in Belvedere. The mixed use district standards clearly establish those objective design standards. And as such, program 2A clarifies that Title 22 will apply to multifamily development in the R2 and R3 zones. Previously, there was some discussion about whether or not there should be an option for multifamily development to also use Title 19 and Title 20. But further determination has indicated that the Title 22 objective design standards, we do want to apply to all multifamily in R2 and R3. And Title 20 would apply only to single-family development. Program 1H originally called for in lieu fees from that inclusionary housing to go into a housing development fund, but ultimately it was determined that in lieu fees would not likely support new construction due to the cost of development in Belvedere. And so this program has been reframed to expand the potential uses for this fund, which would be controlled to the city and would be expanded to defray costs of waivers, local match requirements, or maintenance and rehabilitation of existing deed restricted units, such as like those at Farley Place, for example. So at the Planning Commission meeting on the 30th, commissioners requested changes that largely consisted of minor clarifications, text and map edits, and errata corrections. More generally, this included clarification of Program 2A to multifamily projects in the R2 and R3 zones. There were also questions about the SB 9 candidate sites, which as stated earlier, are intended to demonstrate viability and do not represent site-specific estimations. It also clarified that co-housing lot size eligibility would change from 0.5 to 0.75 acres, though other standards related to that program would be developed at a later time. And then also not included as a bullet here, but just clarification that the one deed restricted moderate income unit as part of the SB 9 requirements is not, you don't need to have that in order to proceed with one lower income unit as part of the 6 that you would get, if that's clear. Okay, so then some next steps. So this evening, we're hoping for confirmation that the revisions are on the right path and you can approve resubmittal to HCD. HCD will then have 60 days to complete their review. And then we are hoping to receive a letter back that says if the city adopts with certain any revisions, the element will be found in substantial compliance. And it will be at that point that we then bring this back to the city council for adoption in likely February of next year. So this concludes my presentation and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to say that was, I think, the clearest and most succinct description of this work I've heard to date. Thank you very much. Do we have questions for Allison before we open it to the public? Speak up if you have any.
I have one question, comments later. Is that your plan?
We can deliberate it in comments later. I think just questions.
Yes. My comment has to do with SB 9 and the lot split. I understand this. I understand the split part of that. There are a few lots in Belvedere that have previously been merged. Were there to be new development planned on any of those? The merger generally entails a reduction in overall size and some other issues. Correct me if I'm wrong. My question is there any procedure in Belvedere for unwinding a previous merger if there were to be new construction on the site?
Not that I'm aware of, and I think that would probably be entirely up to the property owner, not the city. Correct, Andrew?
I'm sure it'd be up to the property. I'm sure it'd be up to the property owner, but my question is whether it's even possible. Obviously, if someone has merged two lots before and built a single structure over the two merged lots at a reduced, at a size that was reduced by virtue of our ordinances concerning mergers, that's one thing. But if the property were vacant or subject to a demolition, and a property owner wanted to apply for an SB9 entitlement, would they be able to do that? It may be a legal
Yes,
question.
yes, provided they meet the qualifications for SB9. I think that's exactly what's happening at 214 Bayview. It used to be two lots. It's one lot now, and now we have an application for SB9.
That's one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that would involve a demolition at some point?
No, because the one house is really on a corner of the property, so
I see,
I
okay.
believe it conforms to all the SB9 requirements.
Okay, so the merger didn't span the two
Mm-mm.
lots. Okay, thanks, thanks. That answers my question. It's very, very interesting. And I wonder if some of the numbers might change. They could certainly change in a subsequent housing element.
I just have a couple of quick questions, which are actually more just about process and what you might be learning from Southern California if you're working with agencies there. When I read through all of the policies and programs, a lot of times it says the funding source is staff time, and we have a very small staff. And I see from our latest budget report that 25% of staff time in the last budget cycle has been on the housing element. And so my question is, in your experience, do most of these updates that are required and the advancement of policies get developed by staff in-house in agencies, or do these tend to be consultants that do that type of work going forwards?
I think as you indicated, it depends on the resources of the city. We have seen some cities develop their own programs with funding. Like I don't work in any Southern California cities, but Oakland, for example, staff is working on the implementation, but other cities I do know hire consultants to help with implementation of the housing element, yes.
But I'm assuming there's quite a lot of consistency amongst different agencies. There are other sort of off-the-shelf and sort of development of some of these policies that we can pick from. I know we can't change this, but I'm just trying to understand how much of a burden this is going to be going forwards, given how much of a burden it's been so far.
I think some we can, sort of cherry pick from other jurisdictions. For example, I'm pretty sure Tiburon has recently, as of this month, maybe updated their ADU ordinance, right? And we know we need to do that. So we can at least use that as a basis for ours and sort of develop it from there. But in terms of sort of the broader programs and policies, I don't know the answer to that.
There could be potential for grant funding. I know that for some, though this is usually in jurisdictions that have more transit-oriented housing development, they would be eligible for some grants. But there's also, I think part of the reason why we have included this housing fund and reframed it as such is to provide resources for staff to defray fees and things like that. So in that way, we're trying to, come up with funding.
Okay. And then the second question I had, and again, you might not be able to answer this, all we can do is show where it might be possible to build housing. We can't force people to build housing.
That's right.
But we do have to provide updates. Do you know yet from Southern California or even Northern California cities that are more advanced, when do you, how soon is HCD going to tell you that you're not performing and what the consequences are going to be?
Yeah, so HCD has required in many jurisdictions that I've worked with, and we have a program in this housing element for a mid-cycle review. So it would be at that point you know, we'd have to assess how much progress was being made in Belvedere and course correct accordingly. So
And that just means more policies. There's nothing, we can't force people again to build, so it just means trying to implement more policies again to incentivize.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
The Southern California equivalent to our ABAG have been going through this, and we've been following it, Vice Mayor Cooper and myself, and they're panicking a bit because they're not achieving their mid-cycle results, and they're about a year ahead of us. And they don't, and HCD hasn't responded to them. They're all saying we're not achieving these results, and what do we do? How do we do it? And they're all both in a holding pattern because I don't believe HCD has responded to them yet.
I guess I'd say that since HCD is still dealing with communities like Belvedere that are not done yet, that they might find that they're also a little behind on starting up to go back to every community. I think there's still a group of percentage of cities in California that have not been approved yet by HCD. So although I know we're the last one in Marin, we're not necessarily the last one in California. So I think they have their hands full.
That's right.
I have one question, probably more for Rebecca. I noticed in Appendix A3, there's reference to 11 vacant lots. Are those 11 buildable lots?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
I've got a couple of quick questions, but any further? Allison, just to clarify, you mentioned early in your presentation that in our previous conversations with HCD that they felt we were on the right track. Did that include the SB9 strategy that you discussed?
Yes, the SB9 strategy was included when we sent the Appendix A for their preliminary review. And when they said that in October, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And just to clarify, one of the reasons for us adopting or proposing to adopt policies and ordinances similar to or mirroring Tiburon's in relation to our mixed use was to remove the constraint on the property owner to develop that they would have two jurisdictions deal with. It would be as simple as possible.
Yep, that's right. Peter.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll open it up to public comment. If anyone has some comment on this item. Seeing nobody in the room. Anybody online? Thank you. I'll close the public comments. Bring it back for deliberations. Any comments or thoughts by the council? Happy to call someone. Please go ahead.
So you don't cold call us. You can think who you're going to call next. First, a huge thank you to Mayor Mark and Vice Mayor Cooper for months and months and months of working with this, and a thank you to staff and to our excellent consultant. I think it's great that we have had a preliminary review from HCD and looks positive. The only change that I would make, it's very minor. Actually, yeah. If you look at 4-14 and it occurs in a couple of places, you could just search for that. It refers to the planning.
Did you mean page 4?
No. Says, for example, the bottom of, I'm sorry, 410, and then it also appears in 414.
In the matrix.
And the matrix, it refers to the planning period. And I think that's really ambiguous for a number of different reasons we don't need to go into. But I'm assuming you mean the 6th housing cycle. And I would really urge you to change that throughout so that's clear, because a misunderstanding there could cause some problems later. But otherwise, I don't have any changes I would make.
Thank you,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Please.
Pardon me for interrupting, but Mayor Mark, there is a hand raised that just missed.
Okay,
public comment.
I'll suspend our deliberation and open public comment again.
Thank you. It's Alex Leistein. Alex, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Bob Lightstein speaking, 17 Peninsula Road. My question is, has anyone really talked about the parking situation? For every unit that is built, there will be a minimum of 1 car plus, and especially on the island. How are we going to be able to accommodate all of these cars? It's bad enough down when we're on the flats on the lagoon. There are people who have 1, 2 children, just some single couples who have 2 and 3 cars. Where is the parking situation examined in this whole situation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Do Rebecca or Allison, you want to comment on that briefly? I do know that most every development requirement has offsite parking. Most every development standard has offsite parking requirements, with the exception of accessory units or affordable units in a proximity of a transit stop. But that is accounted for. It's limited because of the state laws, but it is accounted for.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Mark. And then I'll also indicate that the design standards for the SB9 incentive units have yet to be developed, and Planning Commission and the council will be able to weigh in once those are developed later on.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize.
Thank you. Commissioner Lynch, do you have any thoughts or comments?
No comments, just to echo the congratulations on getting us to this point by Mayor Mark and Vice Mayor Cooper and our team at Diane Bhatia and the entire team at City Hall. It's an extraordinary amount of work, and we're very grateful. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out that Pat Carapia certainly is the leader of the team, so I will give her proper credit for this as well. Councilmember Wilkinson?
I have absolutely nothing to add other than thank you again to the large group that contributed to this.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper?
I have to echo Mayor Mark, Allison. This was truly a great presentation. I think you somehow took all the hundreds of hours of work that we've all worked on together and condensed it into a beautiful, clear and simple way for even us to hear it again and say, oh, now I get it. This is what we thought it was, and it truly is. So thank you very, very much for that. It was truly magnificent. I guess I'd just like to say that, yes, our planning commissioner, Pat Carapia, was an equal, if not, as Peter said, larger than equal member. And we certainly relied on her a lot for her knowledge and experience in the planning arena. And when the public sees this, you're going to see a huge document. And I think it's important to know, as Allison mentioned over and over again, that a lot of what's in there is required by HCD, that we say how we will appropriately handle, participate in, build for many varieties of income people and in many varieties of areas throughout the city. So it is a huge document. And I'm sure it'll be confusing for some people, but don't hesitate if anyone has questions to reach out to any of us, and we will do our best to be as clear as Allison. And maybe she'll share her presentation with us so that we have it readily at hand. I do have one question, actually, for Rebecca. I know that one of the things we talked about was trying to get the ADU zoning to add low-income deed restricted in our zone, and that we were looking to address the emergency areas, housing moving from recreation to mixed use as soon as possible at a planning commission meeting. Is that still moving forward?
Well, it can, yes. I think, the ADU section of the code needs sort of a comprehensive amending. So it would be probably in our best interest of time to amend the whole thing, not just a part of it. But as I mentioned, Tiburon just did theirs. There's other jurisdictions in Marin that have recently updated theirs. So I can certainly prioritize that, yes, as well as the emergency shelters, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have much to add to that. Again, thanks to Allison and Andrew and Rebecca for really shepherding this through. Can I ask for a motion to approve the submission of this to Department of Housing and Community Development?
I would love to make that motion.
Thank you. A second?
Can I clarify, we're making this with the edits proposed by Council Member Kinnitzer,
Yes,
which
please.
were understood?
Yes, I
Very well.
apologize.
I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And let's hope to hear nothing for 60 days. And then here's some good news. Moving on to other scheduled items. First item 6A, discussion and possible action on a revocable license for private improvements in the public right of way for the property located at 441 Belvedere Avenue. Hi, Sammy.
Mark. Thank you, Mayor Mark and council members, for your consideration this evening. Is an application for a revocable license to allow new and existing improvements in the city right-of-way for the property at 441 Belvedere Avenue. On October 15th, the Planning Commission granted design review, demolition, variance, and exception to total floor area to construct a new single-family dwelling on a vacant parcel at 441 Belvedere Avenue. The project included a new driveway, guardrails, and retaining wall on city property to access the attached garage. As a condition of approval, a revocable license was required. The new improvements within the Belvedere Avenue right-of-way will include an asphalt driveway, a 9-foot-long board-formed concrete retaining wall with 42-inch tall metal guardrails. And existing improvements within the right-of-way will include one multi-stem toyon tree. This detail shows a retaining wall shape, size, and location relative to the property line. From the existing edge of pavement, the project would install a 6-inch tall curb that would run 4 feet 10 inches towards the garage. The wall would then raise to 3 feet 6 inches in height for another 4 feet and 3 inches until reaching the garage. A 42-inch tall guardrail would be placed atop the raised retaining wall. Staff recommends that council approve the request for a revocable license. The project benefits the public as the improvements allow the homeowners access to the garage and relieve potential parking and traffic congestion on Belvedere Avenue. Additionally, the project enhances public safety as a driveway, retaining wall, and guardrail would help delineate the roadway from the hillside for oncoming vehicles. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Can I just ask you to step back one slide? You mentioned a few times, and then in your email, the 9-foot high retaining wall and guardrail. Was that on top of the board formed concrete that is bisected by the property line?
9 foot long. It'll be 9 feet long
But-
from the street to the garage.
So it's going to go on top of the 6-inch curb? Because only 4 feet of that wall is extending into the street. Right, Where's the 9-foot? Or go back one slide further. Where's the 9-foot curb?
If you follow my,
But
can you,
I see that line there, and it's the resolution isn't high enough for this, but it's 4.5 feet on one side and then 4.5 feet on the other side, and part of it's tall, but the other part of it's only a 6-inch curb. I think it's only 4 feet.
Yeah.
Right? The whole thing is 9 feet, but only 4 feet of it, 4.5 feet of it are tall,
that's correct, yes.
right? Okay, so the 9 feet is stepped right down to a 6-inch curb. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah. Yes, I think, you're right. It starts at 9 feet and comes down.
No, not
Oh, it
9
goes the
feet.
other way.
No, no.
I'm sorry. It's, yeah,
no,
it's 9 feet in length.
9 feet in length. This portion here is 6 inches off
Exactly.
the street, and then it raises here to 3.5 feet from the driveway. The
Yes.
total height of it is going to be taller than 3.5 feet.
Well, 42 inches, yeah. So on the picture on the right there, it says proposed work in revocable license area.
Mhm.
That first point where it says the low curb, that's 4 feet 10 inches or so from left to right. Correct? At 6 inches. Then it steps up to 42 inches and goes another 4 feet 3 inches to the property line. It continues on in the property line, but in the revocable license area, that's the 9 feet you're talking about.
The 9 feet is from the edge of pavement to the property line.
Yes,
Yes,
but there's only 4 feet of 42-inch high wall.
yes,
Got it.
yes.
Sorry. With that cleared up, sorry. Any further questions for? No, because the report, and you said it's 9 feet of 42 inches tall, which would be a lot bigger than it is.
Yeah.
Any further questions for our planning staff?
I was curious, if this is granted tonight, under which CTL would this project fall? Is it dependent on the building permit date for that determination?
Yes, but since we've adopted the new CTL, it'd be under the new CTL.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have a question about the guardrail. It's going to go on top of the portion of this wall that is 42 inches above the roadway.
That's correct.
And so how high then is that retaining wall with the guardrail on top?
It'll be the 3'6" retaining wall plus the 42-inch guardrail.
No. That's not right. Yeah, no, I mean, the code is only 42 inches total.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think the 42-inch guardrail will go on top of the shorter part of the retaining wall. But David Thompson is here. He can probably answer
Yeah.
these questions.
Okay, Dave, we'll call you up in a second. Any further questions for staff before we can ask questions to the applicant? None? Why don't we ask the applicant to present if they wish and answer these questions?
Make sure the mic.
Make sure the green light is lit.
Yeah. Good evening, council. So yeah, let me see if I can explain this clearer. So the dash line that you see in the diagram, that's called out as the sloping driveway. So from that point.
David, back up a little bit.
Oh,
It's just,
sorry.
it's harder,
Sorry,
it's easier
okay.
to hear. Thank
Yeah.
you.
From the dash line going up 42 inches above the driveway is the guardrail wall. So that's code required because the drop from the driveway level to the adjacent grade is more than 30 inches. So from you can see how steep the grade slopes down from the roadway down. So from the edge of the pavement back until you hit that 30-inch elevation change between the driveway and the grade, there's essentially just a 6-inch curb just to prevent your car wheels from going off the side as you're pulling out of the driveway. Once you get back that 4.5 feet or whatever the actual dimension is to where you get that 30-inch elevation change, then the wall becomes a guardrail and extends 42 inches above the driveway back to the property line. And the retaining wall it gets taller below the driveway as the hillside slopes down. So by the time you reach the property line, probably from the existing grade to the top of the guardrail, that wall will be approximately 8 feet tall.
So the guardrail is in fact the poured formed concrete wall.
Yes, the wall just extends straight up.
So so the highest exposure above street level, more or less, that dotted line is 42 inches.
Correct.
That's very helpful. That's kind of what I expected, but it was confusing with reference to both the guardrail and the wall. So thank you.
Sure.
David, hold on one second. Just before, just double check if there's any more questions. No, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Any further public comments on this item? Do we have any online? Thank you. I'll close the public comment and bring it back for comments, deliberation, or motion if there are none.
I'm prepared to make a motion, but I don't want to short circuit this.
No, it looks like no short skirting. Can't say that word. Please go ahead.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed resolution.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Item 6B, discussion and possible action to appoint members to the Belvedere Tiburon Joint Disaster Advisory Council. We have a quick staff report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mark. Another item that we had on consent this evening, which may have an impact on this item this evening, was our amendment of the APM policy regarding term limits for appointees to the Disaster Council. Within that amendment that was approved, it was stated that the council from time to time, as needed, but not less or more than 4 years, would update the membership and voting members on that board and consider to continue their terms or appoint new members. So this evening, with that in mind, there is the opportunity through our 2 new applicants to appoint 2 new members to that Disaster Advisory Council. This process will include removing at least 1 member currently that is serving. There's been 2 members on that board for quite some time. I think council's familiar with who those members are, and I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. And I just wanted to further comment before we ask any questions you might have of our city manager or discuss it, that one thing Vice Mayor Cooper and I have discussed in relation to our previous council meeting to put a group together to work on the emergency operation plan that both Councilmember Kemensur and Councilmember Cooper had significant comments on, was to add this to the list of responsibilities to these appointees, so that it's their further responsibility to work on those edits, bring in additional resources when necessary to consolidate those comments and form a draft to bring it back to the city and to this council, and then submit it to the full advisory council once this council has looked at it and approved it. So with that in mind, we thought it was appropriate to relook at the appointees as a whole in combination of these two applicants who are, as we mentioned last month, it's always wonderful to have new people come into the city, but also in light of the new responsibilities that we're adding on. So just to add to the context of this item.
Have you discussed that with the applicants?
Jane?
I think when they actually applied last month and before we postponed it, we were pretty careful to bring that up as one of the criteria. We were hoping that they would commit to all the requirements and responsibilities on the agency itself. And then also with the understanding that there would be additional responsibilities to help determine how this EOP fits with Belvedere, and also perhaps in addition, the hazardous plan that both plans that we adopted last summer. I think it's worthwhile to review both of them to see how they fit with Belvedere. And I think they would also, that would help our safety element, which is also a component of our general plan that will need updating. And so I look forward to the Belvedere volunteers who are on this committee to work with me and other people, as Mayor Mark mentioned, that we'll discuss later on, in figuring this all out. And I think it's a good time for us to look at what each of the people brings to this. So I think we have two candidates here who bring very different backgrounds from previous members, appointed members of the committee. And I think it would be interesting to have their input into it. So I think, again, trying to explain that we have this additional committee responsibility and what could put whoever's appointed, what could they bring to do all that. That was where we were trying to come from.
And I further discussed this with both standing members of the committee. I'll amend that. Jane spoke with Tom, I spoke with Jerry, and both reiterated they see this as a council responsibility to direct the committee, and would be happy with our decision on this matter. I would like to propose that, never want to let these two good candidates go. I'd like to propose that we appoint both Ruben Colera and Keith Pagan, and have Tom Cromwell retain his position on it. Certainly have that discussion or deliberation from there, but I'll throw that out there as a starting point.
And in your discussion, or in the discussion with Jerry Butler, he expressed his willingness to be replaced or removed at this time after 9 years
Well,
of service.
he would be happy to stay, but he understands the value of bringing in new people into the city from a volunteer perspective, and will abide by our recommendation here.
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate that clarification, because that was not clear to me from the memo. We had one opening and we had two people who are longstanding servants on this council. So I appreciate that. I would be happy to follow your lead, Mayor Mark, the suggestion to appoint both of the new applicants and to retain Tom's service.
I would concur. I think We heard from and about each of the two new applicants last time, and they are both very well qualified in different ways. With respect to Jerry Butler and Tom Cromwell, both of whom have served on this council and have been mayor, and are longstanding dedicated public servants to Belvedere. I really appreciate Jerry's willingness to serve again, should he be needed. I think that probably is his intention. I have worked very closely over the last 8 years, really, with Tom Cromwell, Dr. Cromwell, with regard to the medical needs of the community in the event of emergencies, the medical unit that we have, and various other trainings. I think at this point, particularly with new people, it would be very, very hard to lose the dedication of Dr. Cromwell. I'm willing to follow your lead, Mayor Mark, and support that.
Thank you. Any further comment? No?
I think I'd also like to remind everyone that Dr. Cromwell is the chair of the committee in the agency. And so since we do share this agency with Tiburon, I think it would be important for everyone who's on that group and serving there to have the consistency of the chair there as we move forward and continue on with their goals. And I'd also like to add, as did Councilmember Chemnitzer, that Jerry Butler has been a very willing and wonderful volunteer for our community, has been mayor, has received Citizen of the Year award, and we're really grateful to him for his commitment to keeping Belvedere safe for the last 9 years as an appointed member of this agency. And as we've all said, we're thankful to all volunteers who step forward. And I think given the opportunity and the requirements that we're looking for, that having 2 more people join in as volunteers to our community is really worthwhile. So I would also support our 2 new candidates to fill the position along with Dr. Cromwell.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to appoint Ruben Carla, Keith Pagan, and reappoint Tom Cromwell to the Belvedere Tiburon Joint Disaster Advisory Council?
I so move.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. You know what? I didn't open public comment. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Can I have public comment on that item?
There are no hands raised.
I consistently do that. I mean, it's like at least once
My
a meeting,
apologies
I'm
for
going to do
interrupting.
that. No,
I
you're
forgot.
absolutely right. I don't think we need to do the nomination again. Thank you. We have one other revocable license to discuss, item 6C.
Mayor Mark, I own property within 500 feet. The staff report says my residence is within, my residence is elsewhere on the island, but I own property within 500 feet of this site, so I should
Okay.
recuse myself.
Thank you. We have just the open forum, so are you going to leave and say
Am I
goodbye?
excused?
Absolutely. I'm jealous. Thank you so much. So right of way for the property at 501 Centerville Avenue, and we'll give a moment for Councilmember Chemnitzer to leave.
Thank you again, Mayor Mark and council members. For your consideration this evening is an application for revocable license to allow new and existing improvements in the Acacia and San Rafael Avenue right-of-ways for the property at 501 San Rafael Avenue. On September 17th, the Planning Commission granted design review, demolition, and variance approvals to convert an existing church into a single-family dwelling and construct a detached garage. The project included a new asphalt driveway and metal guardrail within the Acacia Avenue right-of-way to access the new garage. As a condition of approval, a revocable license was required for all new and existing improvements within the right-of-ways. New improvements within the Acacia Avenue right-of-way would include a new 20-foot by 20-foot, 11-inch wide asphalt driveway with a 42-inch tall metal guardrail. Existing improvements that would be maintained include a series of 2 to 3 foot tall retaining walls and landscaping, which include a 16-inch and 20-inch diameter oak tree. For council's consideration, the revocable license exhibit in your packets indicate that the stop sign and agave tree at the intersection of Acacia and San Rafael Avenue are part of the revocable license area. These items are not proposed as part of the revocable license and would be removed if approved. Here, the section shows the placement of the new asphalt driveway. Here, existing improvements within the San Rafael Avenue right-of-way include shrubs and trees. And while not part of the revocable license, the project would install a new 4-foot wide concrete sidewalk per Marin County standards. The sidewalk would run the length of the shaded area shown in this exhibit. Staff recommends that council approve the request for a revocable license. The project benefits the public as the new driveway will relieve parking and traffic congestion on adjacent streets, and the existing landscaping enhances the aesthetic qualities of the streetscape without impeding neighboring views or privacy. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Sammy, is the stop sign being relocated or what's happening with that? It's gone away?
It's not being relocated, it's just going to be maintained by the city.
Oh, but I
Just
thought,
taking out of their property. They shaded it in.
oh, that's not part of the, that's not part of the revocable license area. I understand.
Mhm.
It's not being removed. It's being
No.
removed from our
From
consideration.
the license itself.
I understand. It's slow today, sorry. Any questions for,
Can you explain, I know the sidewalk's not part of it, but can you explain how the sidewalk, is it essentially the pathway that's there right now? And then it continues down, but isn't there a huge boulder at the bottom of the stair? All that's gonna go?
The architect is here, but my understanding is the boulder would remain, and this path that you see here would just be now improved with concrete, and it would run all the way down until where there's the red curb. If you know, there's the red curb there right now, would run down to the end there. Here, I
So
believe
it
the rock
won't
would
go as
stay.
far as Farley Place. It won't connect with the Farley Place sidewalk or that area.
No,
It'll just come down and kind of end where the main stairs up to the property are,
that's right, where that rock is, actually.
where that rock is.
Mhm.
I can't, I've walked it many times. I have no clue how that's gonna
Yes.
work, but.
I think
um,
it's good. The idea is that it needs to connect to the existing sidewalk.
Right, but there's a huge boulder there. Oh, maybe we have an answer.
Hi, Steve Weisenbaker, the architect. Sammy, could you put that diagram back up? There you go. So there's an existing path that comes down to the entrance to the church.
Mhm.
That would be improved to Marin County standard. Beyond that, there's all kinds of stuff that would be removed
Okay,
so that the sidewalk could just continue.
thank you.
Sammy, why did you say that the path isn't included in the? I mean, aren't we, is that what we're considering? And that is city-owned property.
We typically do not put sidewalks in revocable licenses. It's been sort of our practice. We do have policies, and Tony's here, that it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain that sidewalk, but we never put them in the RLs. Just as practice. Well, it is still public right of way, but it's still the property owner's responsibility to maintain it anyways, whether it's in the revocable license or not.
I would think it's a good spot to put a sidewalk.
You don't think it is?
I would think it is a good spot to put a sidewalk, just longer term. We don't need to have a broader discussion about it, but it would seem to be, that's what it's for. It's city property and it's.
Yeah, I think this is a unique strip too, certainly.
But it is part of the plans. So, I mean, I guess my question is, what if the applicant decides not to do it?
It's a condition of approval for Public Works.
To put that sidewalk in?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Can I just ask a question? How many parking spaces do you think, are you saying will be lost on Acacia?
I believe two or three.
Which is it?
I think it's 3. I mean, realistically, what is the length of the curb cut, Steve?
It's 20 feet, just over 20 feet. So a parallel parking space is 22 feet. So it's one space that's being lost.
Yeah.
And the homeowner, I believe, spoke with Tony today and expressed his interest to widen the perpendicular space towards the intersection to replace or to add an additional car. So where those 2 existing spaces are, the idea is to expand that so that there'd be a 3rd car that would replace, so there'd be no net loss of parking.
And is that something that the city can entertain in terms of adding that space further down?
Yes, it was discussed at the Planning Commission, and then we went back and talked to Tony, and he said it's certainly something that, should it work out engineering wise, that we would.
So the homeowners that live opposite
Appreciate
are
it.
satisfied with that remedy?
So
I'm
the
not sure
homeowner is more than happy to work with the city to accomplish that.
I think there was a lot of comments about losing parking, and the people on Acacia really place a lot of value on those parking places. I'm not
Understood.
sure if satisfied is the correct word, but they're appreciative of the additional parking space.
But there seems to be, you said 3 parking spaces lost and now we went down to 1. So
I'm
which,
pulling up the plans to get the measurement.
There's no obstruction in front of the stairs there. I mean, obviously the curb cut in front of the garage, you couldn't park there, but is there further obstructions there, or could someone park up to the curb cut area?
There's no obstructions other than maintaining the full width of the proposed driveway. So it's 1 space, no more.
Mhm.
Prevent parking on the opposite side of the street.
That is about 21 feet. Our parking requirement is 9 by 18, so it is 1 space.
It's 9 by 18 for perpendicular space, but for parallel, you need 22. 22 by 9 for parallel space.
thank you.
Councilor Lynch, any questions?
Just very briefly, Sammy, on for item where you go through the standard and we talk about D and the existing retaining wall that supports the exterior walkway. Is there any plan to improve that or touch that, or is that just that's existing and it's gonna remain without modification?
I believe that's gonna remain, but Doug, Steve, if you may.
What?
In the staff report, there's reference to an existing retaining wall on San Rafael. No, excuse me, on Acacia. On Acacia. And the staff
Yeah.
report says that that existing retaining
Where,
wall.
where is it, Sammy? Could you?
It's the stepped wall.
It's the step wall. It's going to stay.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no modification for anything other than the addition of the driveway.
Great. And same with the walls on the San Rafael right away. With the shrubs and all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
those are just little incursions that have been there for 70 years.
Yeah, and no changes to
No
them.
changes.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Cooper, do you have any questions, comments?
Well, I had some questions based on the public comment at that September meeting, but I don't know that they don't really impact the revocable license. They're just separate questions to try to see if we could help some of the comments. And I don't know if you want those now or.
Let me open it up to public comment and then we'll bring it back for deliberation. Any public comments on this item? Seeing no one in the room.
Mayor Mark, there are no hands raised.
Thank you. I'll close the public comment and bring it back for deliberation. I'll just jump in real quickly. I think the planning commission did a really good job with this to look at the two conflicting issues. The community felt very strongly to keep this property, and the homeowner did I think did a wonderful job of incorporating the benefits of this property into a viable home and an additional unit with parking along the backside. But the compromise was both the traffic and the lack and the parking issue on Acadia. And I think the compromise is as good as it possibly can be. And I think the planning commission did spend a fair amount of time on that. I can support this, but I'm certainly open to other people's comments and thoughts.
Yeah, I can support it.
I agree.
Same.
With that, I can make a motion to approve the revocable license for 501 San Rafael Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Can I just ask my question? That's in response to one of the comments. So,
Who are you asking? The city staff or?
yeah,
Okay.
so I was just asking, there's a large agave plant right at the stop sign or past the stop sign that's very overgrown and sort of all on top of it, and it's a jumble and it has ivy growing through it, and it's, I don't know, it looks like a mess to me. But I know that a comment or two was that driving out of Acacia, it's difficult to see around that corner. And so I wondered if it's possible that if that agave plant could be removed, that could open up an easier visual, so it'd be a safety factor, open up the visuals of that corner so people could actually see people coming up and stopped at the stop sign in case they want to go forward towards San Rafael Avenue that way, or making a sharp U-turn, they'd be able to also see, which I don't think they can right now. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring up about the agave plant to see if that's something we could look into. And then there was also some comments about the crosswalk going from San Rafael Avenue at Farley. And that's why I was asking about the sidewalk, because if we're gonna have a real usable sidewalk there, which would be amazing and great, the potential for more traffic, walking pedestrian traffic going down and using that crosswalk there, that and we heard at that meeting that was a little bit dangerous because people are coming around the corner kind of fast and don't necessarily have the distance to slow down and stop if someone were there. So my suggestion or question is, I'd be curious to know if we could put some kind of a pedestrian crossing sign up so that as people came down, it would make it safer for hopefully more pedestrians using that crosswalk. So I just was suggesting that maybe that could be looked at.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can talk about Public Works implementing.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. I think Jane, you jumped ahead of me on the open forum.
Oh.
But that's, I mean, that was for all intents and purposes an open forum. But I'd like to open the open forum now, which is an opportunity for any member of the public to briefly address City Council on any matter that does not appear on this agenda. I'd like to remind both the council members and the public that under the Brown Act, council members may not deliberate or take action on any items not on tonight's agenda. Anyone in the room for the public comment? I don't see anybody.
Mayor Mark, there are no hands raised.
No hands raised. Thank you. And I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting and thank you all very much.